It was a Tuesday when the text came through. Just 3 words. We all agreed. At first, I wasn't sure what it meant, but the pit in my stomach already knew. A minute later, my phone buzzed again, and this time it was a full sentence sent by my mom. We all agreed. You're not welcome at the wedding. No punctuation, just that smug little dash she always used when she wanted to sound formal. A smirk in text form. I stared at the message, rereading it like the words might somehow change if I blinked hard enough. But they didn't. My sister's wedding. The one I helped pay for. The one I helped plan. The one where I'd spent months putting out emotional fires, listening to crying fits, and booking every vendor because my sister, Sarah, was too stressed to deal with it. The same Sarah who, 2 weeks ago, called me her emotional rock, while I wired over another $1,500 for centerpieces that looked like Pinterest threw up on a florist. My name's Kyle. I'm 31. And up until that message, I thought I was doing something good, being the glue that held things together for a family that always seemed just one missed call away from falling apart. I'm not rich, not by any means, but I've worked in IT long enough to put some money away. I've lived modestly, stayed single, and saved while everyone else splurged and borrowed. For years, I thought that meant I was blessed, and they were just unlucky. Turns out, being the responsible one just makes you the family ATM with no overdraft protection. The wedding was supposed to be next Saturday, a beachside venue on the coast, with a ridiculous ivory and gold theme my sister insisted was classy, but looked more like a royal baby shower. I paid for half the venue deposit, booked the flights, even reserved the honeymoon suite in Cabo under my name because my mom's credit wasn't good enough to secure the reservation. And now, I wasn't welcome. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my laptop and quietly logged into the travel portal I'd used for the honeymoon flights. 2 round-trip tickets, business class, under my email. I clicked cancel and watched the screen blink for a second before the $3,800 refund notification popped up. Then I went into my savings account and initiated a transfer, $6,500, the exact amount I had wired to my mom last month for what she claimed was wedding overflow costs. I didn't say a word to anyone, just watched the numbers move. I felt nothing, not anger, not even sadness, just a strange sort of calm, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. The first call came at 8:17 p.m. It was my sister. I let it ring. Then came my cousin, then my uncle, then mom. I turned off notifications and went about my night, reheating leftovers and watching a documentary I didn't absorb a second of. By morning, there were 23 missed calls, 4 voicemails, and a single message that made my hand go cold. Please call me. It's Dad. That stopped me. My dad usually stays out of the chaos. He's a quiet man, the kind who'd rather tinker with a busted coffee maker than get involved in family drama. When I was a kid, I used to think he didn't care. As I got older, I realized it wasn't that. He just picked his battles carefully. And for him to step into this one, something was off. But before I could process it, the voicemail started playing in my head, echoing even though I hadn't hit play. I imagined Sarah's whiny tone, Mom's theatrical sobbing, maybe a guilt-laced message from an aunt who hadn't texted me in 2 years. I wanted to delete them all. I really did. But that one message, from Dad, lingered. This didn't come out of nowhere. It started small. A sideways comment here. A joke there. Last Christmas, Mom said, "Well, at least Sarah will give us grandkids." Not everyone can say that. At the time, I laughed it off. I've never wanted kids, and I'm okay with that. But it stung in a way I didn't admit. Then, during Sarah's engagement dinner, I noticed I wasn't seated at the main table. Just to keep things even, Mom had said. But my younger cousin's boyfriend, who'd only been around for 3 months, was seated next to the groom. I swallowed that one too. Like always. They were always little paper cuts, never big enough to justify a confrontation. Until suddenly, they were. After Sarah got engaged, everything became an emergency. Mom called me in a panic over cake samples. Sarah had meltdowns about bridesmaid dresses. I was expected to cover whatever the groom's family didn't. And I did, because I thought helping meant belonging. I thought showing up with my wallet was how I proved I mattered. But it never bought me a seat. It just made me the unpaid intern of their fantasy wedding. And now I wasn't even invited. I sat on the edge of my bed that morning, my laptop still open, the email confirmation of the canceled flights glowing like a quiet middle finger. I scrolled through the missed calls, each name a little louder than the last. Then I got to the message from Dad. Just 6 words. You need to see this now. That's when my stomach dropped. I stared at the message from Dad, my thumb hovering over the screen. You need to see this now. 6 words, but they carried the weight of something heavier than guilt. My father has always been a man of few words, but every one of them is measured. He's not dramatic like Mom, not manipulative like Sarah, and definitely not the type to panic. So if he said I needed to see something, it wasn't going to be another teary voicemail or passive-aggressive family group chat post. I called him. He picked up before the second ring. Kyle, he said, voice low. You got a minute? Yeah, I said, and suddenly my mouth was dry. What's going on? There was a pause. I could hear the muffled thrum of a television in the background, then the volume clicked off. I didn't know they were going to do that. Your mom and your sister. I just found out this morning, after they locked down the seating chart and made the announcement in the family group chat. I'm not even in the group chat, I muttered, more to myself than him. I know, he replied quietly. That's part of it. Another pause. Then he said, Kyle, they told everyone you chose not to come. That hit me harder than I expected. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. What? They said you were pulling one of your loner stunts. That you got upset over something minor and backed out. Sarah told the family you were always a bit dramatic, and this time you went too far. That you didn't want to be there. I laughed, sharp, bitter, humorless. So they kicked me out and made it my decision? Worse, he said. Your mom said you threatened to ruin the wedding if you came. That knocked the breath out of me. She what? Dad sighed, like you didn't want to be the one saying this. She told Sarah's in-laws you were emotionally unstable, still bitter about being single, and that you were jealous of your sister's happy ending. Said you were making everything about you, like usual. Like usual? My voice cracked. I had to stand up. My apartment suddenly felt like it was shrinking. I know, son, Dad said quickly. I know that's not who you are. I've watched you pick up every piece they dropped. You handled that entire engagement party, and no one thanked you. You paid off Mom's second credit card last summer without saying a word. You showed up every time they didn't. But they don't see that. Or maybe they do, and it threatens them. I leaned against the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. So this whole thing, this exile, was a setup? To make me the bad guy? Dad hesitated. Then, with an exhale, said, It's worse than that. They already started telling people you refused to fund the honeymoon out of spite. That's when I knew something had changed in me. Something broke, but not in the way I thought it would. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't even angry. I felt detached, cold, like I was watching a rerun of a show I used to care about but now knew all the plot twists too. They took the money, Dad, I said flatly. $6,500 wired to Mom's account for the honeymoon. I canceled the flights last night. The refund's already back in my account. He was silent for a moment. Then, softly, good. It was the first time in years my father had supported one of my decisions that openly. He wasn't a man of grand gestures, but that one word meant everything. Then he added, There's something else. I wasn't going to tell you, but I think you need to see it. I heard rustling on the other end. Then the ping of a message coming through. I opened my phone. It was a screenshot. A group chat, Mom, Sarah, and a few of the aunts. My name was mentioned in the thread. Mom texted, Don't worry about Kyle. He's just sensitive because no one's ever loved him enough to marry him. I'll talk to him after the wedding, once he realizes how childish he's being. Sarah texted, He's a ghost. Let him fade. Just need to make sure he doesn't embarrass us. And Cheryl texted, So we're agreed. No +1 for him even if he begs? Mom texted, Exactly. No seat, no speech, no drama. He'll get over it. He always does. I read the messages twice, then a third time. And then I deleted them, not out of denial, but because I didn't need to see them again to know the truth. I'd always been an outsider in my own family. The helper, the fixer, the invisible glue. But glue doesn't get a seat at the table. It just holds everything else together while it cracks. And they were right about one thing. I wasn't going to beg. That evening, I sat down and began making a list, not of people to confront, but of systems to dismantle. They wanted me to fade quietly, but they'd forgotten something. I was the one holding the strings. The joint Costco membership with Mom? Canceled. The Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus family plans? Removed their profiles. The auto payments I'd been quietly making on Sarah's student loan? Disabled. And the best part, the venue deposit for the wedding? Still under my name. Technically, I was the primary contract holder. They'd never paid me back for that check I wrote to lock in the date. I'd been meaning to deal with that paperwork later. No, it was at the top of my list. As I stared at the contract, hovering over the cancel reservation option, I smiled for the first time that day. Because if they thought I was dramatic before, they hadn't seen anything yet. By Wednesday morning, the silence from my end had them spiraling. The voicemails went from passive-aggressive to desperate. Sarah's tone morphed with every message, first annoyed, then pleading. Kyle, can we talk? I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. Mom didn't mean it that way. I didn't respond. I listened with my arms crossed, each new message only confirming what I already knew. They were trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and it was far too late for that. But I wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of ego. This wasn't about lashing out. This was about letting go and making sure they felt it. That afternoon, I sat down with a black notebook and started writing out every account, every auto payment, every password-protected bill I had my name attached to. I wasn't dramatic. I was thorough. The irony? They called me the cold one, the robot, the one who didn't feel things like the rest of us. They were right in a way. I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. I calculated. I logged in. Mom's phone plan, which I'd been paying for since 2019 when she got laid off. Suspended. She wouldn't even notice until she tried to make a call during her hair trial on Friday. Sarah's Venmo, which was connected to my bank as a backup card, from when she overdrafted 3 times during college and never figured out how to remove it. Unlinked. And then I reported the suspicious charges on my account just for fun. Fraud protection is a beautiful thing. By Thursday morning, I had an email from the wedding venue. A polite but firm confirmation. Your cancellation request has been received. Per the contract, your deposit will be forfeited unless a replacement booking is secured. I smiled. Let them explain that to the 118 guests flying in for a Saturday ceremony that suddenly didn't have a legal reservation. Around noon, my cousin Mark called. He's the only one who ever treated me like a person, not a tool. His voice was tired. Kyle, what's happening? I didn't lie. I'm done funding a family that sees me as a wallet with legs. He sighed. They're freaking out. Good. Sarah's having a meltdown. She's saying you're ruining her marriage. I gave a dry laugh. If a canceled flight and a frozen honeymoon fund ruins a marriage, maybe it wasn't built to last. He didn't argue. He just said, I wish you'd told me sooner. I always knew they leaned on you too much. That night, I opened my laptop again and logged into my dad's old Dropbox account, the one we used when I helped him digitize all the family records a few years back. Inside was a goldmine of scanned receipts, emails, even the original invoice from the engagement party that I paid for but Mom conveniently forgot I covered. I created a new Google Drive folder, uploaded everything, and titled it Contributions from Kyle Nobody Wanted. Then I copied the link and sent it to every family member on the group thread. I didn't write a caption. I didn't need one. Less than 5 minutes later, I was kicked out of the family chat. Perfect. But the real turn came Friday morning, the day before the wedding. I was sipping coffee, enjoying the quiet, when I got an email from the groom's mother, Linda. We'd met once. She was kind, poised, and very by the book. The kind of woman who kept her silverware aligned and said darling instead of sweetie. Her message was short, but it rattled me more than any voicemail. Subject, concern about the wedding. Hi Kyle, I wanted to reach out directly. I've heard bits and pieces about what's going on, and quite frankly, I'm alarmed. If you have a moment, could we speak? I feel like I'm missing some very important information. Best, Linda. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just family gossip anymore. This was a thread unraveling from both ends. I called her. She answered immediately. Thank you for calling, she said, formal but with an edge of concern. I don't mean to overstep, but my son just informed me that the venue may have been canceled. It was, I said plainly. I paid the deposit. It was under my name. She was quiet for a second. That's not what we were told. I'm sure. Another pause. She cleared her throat. Kyle, I don't know what's been said, but I was told you declined to come. That you'd backed out because you were bitter. I let the silence hang, then asked, do bitter people usually pay for floral arrangements, the wedding cake, the DJ, and half the venue? Linda inhaled sharply. I was unaware of any of that. Of course you were. They needed someone to blame when I pulled out. And when I stopped funding it, they made sure to do what they always do, point the finger at me. Her voice lowered. I understand now why you've distanced yourself. I would have too. But, Kyle, there's something you should know. Sarah, she opened a joint credit card with your mom last week. And she used your name on the application. I froze. What? They claimed you co-signed. My husband caught it when we reviewed the final expenses. He recognized your name on the paperwork. That was it. That was the part that changed everything. I wasn't just the family ATM anymore. I was a target. I sat there, my coffee suddenly cold in my hand, the room closing in around me as Linda's words echoed in my ear. They claimed you co-signed. I hadn't. Not even close. I've always been careful about credit. Guarded, even. After watching mom default on a car loan in my early 20s and drag her credit into the basement with mine tethered behind it, because yes, she had convinced me to co-sign that. I'd spent the better part of a decade fixing my financial reputation. I knew better. I hadn't signed anything for this wedding outside of what I paid for directly. Do you have a copy of the application? I asked Linda, my voice calm but clipped. I do, she said. Would you like me to send it to you? Immediately, please. A few minutes later, it landed in my inbox. There it was, staring back at me. An application for a high-limit wedding credit card with a forged digital signature. My name, address, social security number, even my old work email, probably lifted from tax forms or bank records they still had lying around. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sad. I felt clear. All these years, I'd been the fallback plan. The fixer. The silent financier. But forging my name? That wasn't desperation. That was entitlement soaked in fraud. That was theft. And it was the final straw. I filed a fraud report with the credit card company. Took screenshots of every detail. Then I filed a police report. I attached the documentation, the forged application, and a notarized statement of non-consent. Then I picked up my phone, and for the first time since Mom's smug message that started all this, I called her. She answered on the second ring, like she'd been waiting. Kyle, she said, her voice overly cheerful. I was just about to call you. Stop, I said, flat. I just want to hear it from you. Did you sign my name on a credit card application? Silence. Kyle, you're being ridiculous. That was just a backup in case the honeymoon ran over. You know how these things go. Did you sign my name? A long pause. Then, Sarah said you would have done it if you knew it was important. I let that hang there like a guillotine. That's not an answer, I said, my voice cold. But it's fine. You can explain it to the investigator when they call. That cracked her mask. What? Are you serious? Kyle, we're family. You're really going to make this ugly over a little misunderstanding? Mom, I said, cutting her off. You kicked me out of a wedding I paid for, lied to everyone about it, and committed fraud in my name. I didn't make this ugly. You did. I'm just putting it in the light where it belongs. Kyle, honey, please, we can fix this. I hung up. That evening, I drove to my dad's place. He was waiting for me on the porch with 2 beers and that silent, weathered look he always wore when things got heavy. You okay? He asked as I sat beside him. I nodded slowly. Getting there. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. He just handed me the beer and we watched the sun dip below the trees. Eventually, he said, you did the right thing. And somehow, that meant more than anything. The fallout came fast. First came the phone calls from family, my aunts, my cousins, even Uncle Greg, who hadn't spoken to me since 2016. They all wanted to know what was really going on, why the wedding was off, why Sarah had posted a cryptic Instagram story about being betrayed by blood. I didn't respond. Then came the texts, the apologies, the guilt trips. Kyle, I had no idea. We should have stood up for you. Can we please talk? But I was done being their emotional janitor. I let the calls go to voicemail, let the texts sit unread. As for the wedding, it never happened. With the venue canceled and no backup secured, they tried to pivot to a backyard ceremony. But the guests were confused, some turned around mid-flight, and the groom's family, having learned about the forged credit card, called the whole thing off. Apparently, financial fraud before the vows isn't a great look. Sarah went on a posting spree. Cryptic stories, Bible verses, passive-aggressive quotes about snakes in the grass, and family who turns their back on you. I didn't flinch. Because here's the thing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a dramatic confrontation. It's not yelling or exposing someone in front of a crowd. Sometimes it's just clarity, quietly dismantling the system that took you for granted. Walking away while the whole rotten house collapses behind you. About a week later, I got a final message from Mom. You've made your point. We're all hurting. You didn't have to go this far. I didn't reply. Instead, I changed my number. I took a few days off work and booked a trip, solo, just me and my laptop, on the same resort Sarah was supposed to honeymoon at. Funny thing about being the one who booked everything under your name, you know the cancellation policies. I changed the dates, upgraded the suite, took her champagne package and added it to my reservation. And I sat on that balcony, drink in hand, waves rolling beneath me, thinking about how long I'd waited for someone to see me. But I finally saw myself. Not the version they needed me to be. Not the fixer. Not the bank account. Just Kyle. 31, free, and finally, done trying to earn love I never owed them in the first place. I don't know if they'll ever really understand what they lost. But I do. And I'm not giving it back. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. My name's Emma, and up until about 6 months ago, I thought my best friend, Sarah, was the one person who would never let me down. We'd been friends for over 10 years, practically sisters. I mean, we did everything together, from middle school sleepovers, where we'd giggle about boys, to high school pep rallies, to every post-graduation night out. You name it. We were thick as thieves. But something shifted around the time I started dating Mike. You know the story, high school sweetheart turned the guy I married. Mike and I had been together for 3 years when we got engaged. It was the perfect moment, or so I thought. I remember telling Sarah about Mike for the first time. She was so excited for me, always the one cheering me on. At least, that's how I remember it. The truth? Looking back, there were little signs, small things that I dismissed at the time as nothing. But I should have paid more attention. We'd always been super close. So when Mike popped the question at our favorite restaurant, Sarah was the first person I called to share the news. She was ecstatic, at first. But there was something off in her voice, like a quiet undercurrent of resentment. I told myself it was just my imagination, maybe the stress of work, but the cracks in our friendship started showing in the weeks that followed. It wasn't obvious at first. Sarah congratulated me, sure, but then I noticed she started pulling away a bit. I tried not to let it bother me. Weddings are stressful, and I was busy planning. But there were times when I'd call her to chat, and she wouldn't pick up. When she did, she was distant or distracted, and sometimes I'd get a half-hearted response like, "I'm just tired," or "I've got a lot going on." It was weird, but I figured it was just wedding stress. I mean, we all know what a headache that can be. Then came the night I realized it wasn't just about me getting married. It was about her. It happened the week of the engagement party. It was a Friday night, and we were supposed to meet up for drinks. It was supposed to be a casual thing to celebrate with some friends, but when I got to the bar, Sarah was already there, sitting with a group of people I didn't recognize. As I approached the table, I noticed her stiffen, like she wasn't exactly thrilled to see me. "Hey," I smiled, trying to shake off the weird vibe. "I didn't realize you brought so many people." Sarah's smile was forced. "Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to mix things up," she said. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes kept darting around the room. We didn't even hug, which was unusual. We were always huggers. I tried to shake it off, but the night didn't get better. As we talked, I noticed Sarah becoming more and more distant. At one point, she turned her attention to the new guy at the table, who I later found out was her coworker. They were laughing about something, but when I looked closely, her eyes flicked over to me in this almost judgmental way. The kind of look you get when someone's watching you, waiting for you to fail. Then, the conversation shifted. We were talking about wedding plans, and I mentioned how I was deciding between a beach wedding or a more formal venue. Sarah, who was always so supportive of my decisions, suddenly interrupted. "Honestly, I don't get why you'd want to make such a big deal out of it. It's just a wedding." Her voice was cold, almost condescending. "You don't need to spend all that money. People are going to forget about it anyway." I was stunned. My mouth went dry. "What do you mean? It's not just about the money, it's about celebrating with the people we love." I said it lightly, trying to mask the hurt in my voice. She shrugged. "Sure, but you could just elope, right? Wouldn't that be way less of a hassle?" The table went quiet for a moment, and I could feel the awkwardness creep in. I tried to laugh it off, but something inside me was twisting. This wasn't my best friend anymore. This was someone else. Someone who was acting like everything I was doing was wrong. It stung, but I didn't say anything. That night, when I got home, I cried. I thought about everything. How Sarah had been acting recently. How she used to be so supportive of my dreams and now seemed to take joy in tearing them down. But I told myself it was probably just a phase. We all have them, right? The next few weeks went by with Sarah's distance growing. I started to realize that the cracks in our friendship weren't just about me getting engaged. It was something deeper. It wasn't until I caught a glimpse of her Facebook status a few days before the engagement party that I truly understood how deep the jealousy ran. It was a post with a photo of Sarah and another friend, captioned, "Some people just can't handle when things change." The subtle jab at me couldn't have been clearer. I sat there for a few minutes, staring at my screen, my heart sinking. It was like all the pieces clicked into place: her behavior, the distance, the comments she'd made. I was getting married, and it felt like she wasn't happy for me at all. The day of the engagement party arrived. Mike and I were excited. We had a lot of friends coming, including Sarah, of course. But as the evening wore on and everyone gathered, Sarah was nowhere to be found. My phone buzzed with texts from other people, asking where she was. I tried calling her, but there was no answer. My stomach twisted with a mix of frustration and confusion. It wasn't until about an hour into the party that I received a text from Sarah. It was short. "Oh, I forgot. I was busy watching TV." It stung, but I didn't let it show. Not yet. I put my phone down and took a deep breath. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I stepped away from the group, retreating to a quiet corner of the venue. My phone was still in my hand, that awful text message from Sarah staring back at me. I was busy watching TV. It felt so dismissive, so careless. I hit her number and waited for the ringing. My heart thudded in my chest, but I wasn't backing down anymore. I needed answers. She picked up after a few seconds, and I could hear the sound of static in the background, probably her TV, the one she'd rather be watching than celebrating my engagement. "Hey," she said, her voice casual, like nothing was wrong. "What's up?" I could feel my grip tightening on the phone. I swallowed down the lump in my throat before speaking. "Really, Sarah? Really? I've been trying to reach you all night. You were supposed to be here, and now I find out you're sitting on your couch watching TV." My voice shook with a mix of anger and hurt, but I didn't care. It needed to be said. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, just enough for me to feel that familiar, sinking feeling in my stomach. Then she spoke, but not in the way I expected. "You know, Emma," she started, her voice suddenly dripping with sarcasm, "you always were a little overdramatic. It's just a party. You're acting like it's the end of the world." She sounded like she was mocking me, almost like she was enjoying this. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked, the words echoing in my head. "You're acting like it's the end of the world." Was she serious? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like she'd completely dismissed everything that mattered to me. I don't know what happened to you, Sarah. You've been acting like this for weeks now. I don't even recognize you anymore," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but the hurt was creeping in. "I thought we were supposed to be best friends. What happened to that?" She scoffed. "You really want to know? Fine. Here's the truth, Emma. You've changed. Ever since you started dating Mike, it's like you've forgotten about everyone else. And now you're getting engaged, acting all perfect and shiny, and frankly, it's annoying." Her words hit like a slap across my face. Annoying? She was mad at me for being happy? I wanted to shout. I wanted to tell her how hurt I was, how much she'd let me down, but I stayed silent for a moment, trying to hold back the tears threatening to spill. "I'm sorry I'm so perfect and shiny," I said, the bitterness in my voice impossible to ignore. I didn't realize being happy was a crime. There was a pause. And then, like she couldn't help herself, Sarah laughed. It wasn't a joyful laugh. It was a cold, spiteful laugh. "Oh, Emma, you just don't get it, do you?" Her tone was almost mockingly sweet now. "It's not about you being happy. It's about how you've made everything about you. You've always done that, but now you're making it unbearable." My blood boiled. Everything about me? Had she really just said that? The Sarah I used to know would have never talked to me like this. "You know what, Sarah? Maybe you're right," I said, my voice laced with anger. "Maybe I've been so wrapped up in planning my future with Mike that I forgot about you. But honestly, I've been so busy dealing with your attitude lately that I almost forgot what it feels like to have a friend who actually cares." There was a long silence. And then she snapped back with something that cut deeper than anything she'd said before. "You know what, Emma? Maybe you should just stop pretending you're so innocent in all this. You're so caught up in your fairy tale that you can't even see how selfish you've become. But, hey, whatever. Go ahead and keep planning your perfect wedding. I'll be over here, living my life, without all this drama." Before I could respond, she hung up. I stood there, completely stunned. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't even bother looking. My hands were shaking, my thoughts were racing, and I was no longer sure who Sarah was anymore. The friend I'd known for over a decade felt like a stranger now, someone who could casually tear me down without a second thought. I thought about how I used to drop everything for Sarah, how I used to be her biggest cheerleader. And now it felt like she was doing everything she could to tear me down. I took a deep breath, my heart still racing after the conversation with Sarah. I knew I couldn't let her ruin my night. This was my engagement party, and no matter what she said or did, I wasn't going to let her take away the happiness I felt. I decided to enjoy the rest of the evening. The music was great, the food was amazing, and everyone who mattered was here celebrating with me. Mike was by my side, looking handsome in his suit, grinning from ear to ear like he'd just won the lottery. And honestly, in a way, he had. We took pictures with our friends, laughed at inside jokes, and posed with family members. Every time I looked around, I saw how genuinely happy everyone was for us. It felt like the most perfect night. I wasn't going to let Sarah's toxicity ruin it. I couldn't resist snapping a few pictures of Mike and me together, our arms around each other, beaming. I captioned one of them, the one who really matters. It felt like the perfect little jab after what had just happened. I didn't tag Sarah, but I knew she'd see it. She was always checking my posts. A couple of hours passed, and I was dancing with my friends when I heard my phone buzz. I glanced at it and saw a notification. It was Sarah. I braced myself. She'd commented on the photo. Must be nice to have such a perfect life, huh? Too bad it's all a show. I rolled my eyes. The way she always tried to spin everything I did into something negative had become so predictable. I showed the comment to Mike, and we both laughed it off. He rubbed my shoulder affectionately, and we went back to enjoying the night. But then, things took a turn. A few minutes later, I noticed Sarah walking through the door, looking way too casual for a party she wasn't invited to. She was wearing jeans and a hoodie, her hair thrown up in a messy bun. Her eyes immediately scanned the room, and I could feel the tension building. She was clearly here to stir things up. I tried to ignore her, but then I noticed her heading straight for the center of the room where the small group of friends and family were gathered. She was acting all chill, but her movements were too calculated, and I could see the subtle smirk on her face. She was trying to make a statement. Sarah tried to approach me, but I stayed with Mike, who was holding my hand. She glanced around at the crowd, then turned her attention to me, her voice louder than necessary. Well, Emma, looks like your little fairy tale's going great, huh? She said, a clear hint of bitterness in her tone. She scanned the room as if she were looking for something to criticize. I mean, I've never been a fan of the whole look at me vibe, but hey, it's your big day, right? I felt my stomach churn. The whole vibe was off, and I could tell she was trying to sabotage the party. People were starting to notice, and the whispers had already begun. Isn't it a little awkward? Sarah continued, not missing a beat, that all of your friends here are just showing up for a show? Like, you're all pretending to be so happy, but we all know what's really going on behind the scenes. Mike stepped in, his protective side coming out as he gently but firmly placed his hand on my shoulder. Sarah, I think it's time for you to leave. And that's when it happened. As Sarah tried to make her dramatic exit with a smug smile on her face, she turned too quickly toward the door and tripped over the edge of the rug, sprawling forward and crashing into the floor with a loud thud. The entire room went silent for a split second before the snickers started. Then came the laughter. People couldn't help it. Sarah, the girl who had been trying so hard to stir the pot, was now the subject of every eye in the room. She tried to stand up, her face red with embarrassment, but she slipped again, stumbling to her feet. Oh my God, she muttered under her breath, her eyes darting around the room. I could feel the tension lifting from my shoulders as people started laughing. But it wasn't the good kind of laughter. It was the kind that said, you got what you deserved. It was a sweet moment, but I didn't let myself gloat. It felt almost too good to be true, seeing her go from the one trying to make me look bad to the one everyone was laughing at. Sarah's face turned bright crimson. She glared at me, her eyes practically burning with rage, but she said nothing. She just turned and stormed out of the room, the door slamming behind her with a sharp crack. I stood there, still in shock, trying to process what had just happened. But as I looked around at the people who stayed and who were still smiling and laughing with me, I realized this was the moment. Sarah had finally shown her true colors. The night went on, and I made sure to enjoy every single second of it. No more drama. Just me, Mike, and the people who genuinely cared about us. Later that night, I received a few angry texts from Sarah, but they didn't faze me anymore. I'd already made my decision. The morning after the party, I woke up with a heavy head, still trying to process everything that had happened. Sarah's fall was still fresh in my mind, and honestly, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I hadn't realized how much I'd been holding in, and her little stunt at the party had finally broken the tension. But just as I was about to relax, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at the screen. It was Sarah. I hesitated. My mind raced through the options. Should I just block her? Or maybe ignore the call and save myself the stress? I debated, but curiosity got the best of me. I answered the phone. Hello. A long pause. Then, Sarah's voice came through, low and tight with anger. You think you won, don't you? I groaned inwardly, already feeling my blood pressure rise. What do you want, Sarah? You really think Mike's all yours now, huh? She asked, almost coldly. You think he's your perfect fiancé? Your Prince Charming? I wasn't sure where she was going with this, but I could feel the tension in her words. My gut was already telling me this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. I sat up in bed, pulling the covers tighter around me. I don't know what you're talking about. You're the one who showed up to my engagement party uninvited, causing drama for no reason. If you've got something to say, just say it. She laughed, a bitter, dry sound. Oh, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you're too blind to see it. I clenched my jaw. See what, Sarah? There was a long pause, so long that I almost thought she'd hung up. But then she spoke again, her voice quiet, like she was choosing her words carefully. I've been in love with Mike for years, Emma. Years. And I let you have him. I let you think that you two were perfect, that you had this dream life. But all the while, it was me who really deserved him. I'm the one who understands him. I'm the one who actually knows him. I'm the one who knows what he really wants. My stomach sank. This wasn't happening. What? Are you serious right now, Sarah? You're saying that you've been in love with Mike all this time, and you're just now telling me? This whole time, you've been acting like my best friend, but all you wanted was him. Sarah's voice became more heated. I never wanted to hurt you, Emma, but you took him from me. And now that you're getting engaged, you think you're the one he really wants? No, I'm the one who deserves him. I've always been there for him. I've always been his real friend. You don't know him like I do. I couldn't breathe. The words felt like punches. You're insane, I finally managed to say. You seriously think you deserve Mike more than me? You think he'd want someone like you, after all the crap you've pulled? After you've been so jealous and manipulative? This is about you and your own insecurities, Sarah, not about Mike or me. I'm not insecure, she snapped. I'm just tired of watching you pretend to be the perfect couple when we both know the truth. I should be the one wearing that ring, not you. I could feel the anger bubbling inside me, rising to the surface like a volcano ready to erupt. You need to stop right now. Mike isn't a prize for you to claim. He's not some object you can win by playing games. He chose me, Sarah. I am the one he loves, and I don't care if you think you deserve him. You don't get to act like this. You don't get to manipulate people and think you'll get away with it. You've made this all about you for so long, and I'm done. Done with you. There was silence on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought she'd hang up. I was almost relieved. But then she spoke again, her voice dangerously quiet. You're making a huge mistake, Emma. You'll regret pushing me away. No one else is going to put up with you and your perfect little life. Mike's going to see the truth eventually. He always does. And when he does, I'll be there. My heart raced, not out of fear, but out of pure disgust. I could feel the tears of frustration welling up behind my eyes. No, Sarah. You're the one who's going to regret this. Don't ever speak to me again. Don't call. Don't text. Don't even think about showing up to any more of my events. We're done. And I mean it. There was a long, drawn-out pause on the other end of the line. I could practically feel her seething with rage. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't afraid of her petty jealousy or her manipulative games. I was done. Fine, she spat, her voice dripping with venom. But don't say I didn't warn you. You'll see. You'll all see. And with that, the line went dead. I sat there in stunned silence, the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. I had just cut ties with Sarah, the person I had once considered my closest friend, the person I had trusted with my deepest secrets. But I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't allow her to keep manipulating me or Mike. The toxic jealousy was too much. I stared at my phone for a moment, then locked it and tossed it onto the bed. Days had passed since I'd cut ties with Sarah. At first, I was consumed by anger, frustration, and disbelief. But over time, the storm settled, and I found myself oddly calm. Life went on. Mike and I continued with our wedding plans, and I tried to move forward without letting Sarah's drama ruin the happiest time of my life. I'd forgotten about the whole thing for a while. I went to work, spent time with Mike, and even hung out with some of my other friends. It was like a weight had been lifted, and I started feeling normal again. But every now and then, I would think about Sarah, about how she'd betrayed me, and about how it had felt like she was trying to steal everything from me, not just Mike, but my peace, my joy, and my trust. I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting a little every time. And then, yesterday, something unexpected happened. I was scrolling through Facebook, just checking in on the usual stuff, when I saw a post from Sarah. A photo of her, sitting at a bar, smiling and looking so casual. And in the caption, learning to let go, on to bigger and better things. I stared at the screen for a long time. It was so passive-aggressive. And yet, something about it felt like closure. Like she was finally done with the drama, or at least pretending to be. I wanted to laugh, to comment something snarky. But honestly, I didn't care enough anymore. I couldn't be bothered. But then it hit me, she had moved on. And I had too. Maybe I didn't need to worry about her anymore. Maybe it was all part of growing up and leaving behind toxic people. So here we are. The engagement party was a distant memory, and Sarah's drama was nothing but a chapter I'd closed in my life. So then, did I handle it the right way? Let me know what you think in the comments.